Okay. So it all started with the simplest of report cards. Whether it be from preschool or elementary school, if you're like me and many others, your behavioral report card was a series of yellows, greens, or reds in your daily folder, by which it was probably a nightmare if you even got a yellow circle. If you even got a yellow colored circle. Your academic report card consisted of A's, B's, or S's, but that was when everything was so simple. Since then, moving into middle school, getting A's and B's was a top priority to some people. It was a matter of record, and to others, if you got anything below that, it was your parents' cue to get the belt. So, in order to avoid such consequences, you studied hard for tests and quizzes, making the grade necessary for the report card. But before you know it, the material you crammed for on that quiz ends up being on the end of the year test, and you don't remember a thing you studied that night long ago. This will probably be known as you trying to get the A, or in a more professional term, proficiency. In fact, you're not the only one. Students worldwide are focusing more and more on trying to make a certain grade and not focusing enough on trying to understand and retain the information. You may think, well, isn't that what we're supposed to be doing, focusing on our grades? That's what I thought when Mr. McClellan gave me this assignment, but I looked into the topic and I actually feel kind of different now. So I'm just gonna walk you. You know what? I can't even talk. Let me get some water. Let's just know I'm gonna walk y'all through proficiency versus goals, cause y'all be acting like I talk this much. Much better. So first, let's talk about what proficiency even is and what exactly it measures. Proficiency measures how well students perform on state tests, and while some feel that all students should be able to meet that goal, others feel the opposite way, because not everyone learns or understands things that are being taught to them at the same rate as others. So I'm sitting in my room on my computer trying to figure out what the heck am I going to write about and what even is proficiency and growth. Did I just say gross? When I come across this interview on today.com about the pressure students feel getting into college, a topic my English teacher talked about with us while we were doing a college research project. You all know the one. According to a Princeton Review study, 90% of students thought good grades were important. Not necessarily saying that they aren't, but check this out. Only 6% of students say that they actually cared about learning.
That seems a little bit disturbing to me. It's like they're sort of results oriented, like they want the good grades, but they don't really care if they learn.
Well, and that's a real problem because that sort of attitude will get you into college, but it really won't get you through college. And what ends up happening is that there's this myth in America that you have to make a choice. Either you can get good grades and be really stressed, or you can have a fun life and get sort of mediocre grades. And parents need to know, and students as well, that it's not a choice. You can really have both. You can have great grades without the stress.
This really sent me over the edge a bit, because students around the world, including me at times, have thought that grades are going to be the set thing that gets you into college. That is what's being looked at here the most. But according to Heidi Creek, that's apparently not the case. Everyone wants a good job and the ability to support their families. But some students have forgotten that most future employers will not care what grade they got in humanities. Employers want to know what challenges you face in school, how you manage these challenges, and what experiences changed or identified you as a person. And I was thinking back to when we had to write a college admission essay and how much trouble that people, including myself, were having with it. I couldn't think back to any challenges or life experiences that I'd had, let alone why a certain place held so much value to me. It was probably the hardest thing I had to write about on an essay, and that's saying something considering how many essays we've had to write this year. No shade to you, Ms. McClellan. She also said that learning in school has lost its appeal to students. The purpose of a college education now seems to be a simple prerequisite for a stable job and income. And by this point, I am just baffled because I thought that was the goal or the point of college, to get a nice job so you could survive the hardest test of all, life. She goes on and on in the article saying things so true and relatable that I thought she was a high school student writing this. Another thing Heidi Creek said was, self-definition remains one of the most undervalued goals in education. Value now comes from the number of A's achieved, the diploma, and the amount offered in paychecks after college, which is another true statement. Now anyone, you know what? Ooh! It's good that you feel good about your grades, but some students take it to a whole nother level, where it's like they're competing with others. And it reminded me once again of something Mr. McQuillan said when he was telling us about how some students worry about if they're not smart enough for certain colleges or a class, etc., etc. And it really hit home because in the beginning of the year, I didn't feel smart enough for this class. But that's not the point. The point is, grades now hold the entire meaning of our lives, and they determine everything. In fact, students are more likely not to take an advanced or AP class because they fear it would endanger their GPA. So now I'm obviously intrigued and more confused than ever. I mean, here I am, questioning if I'm even learning or not, or if I'm just studying material and then forgetting this material that I have learned after I take the test. So I spend more time researching articles, this time in class, and I'm speaking with my classmates and my teacher, and we talk about the PISA test. I didn't say pizza, I said PISA, which is a test seeing how well students can apply things that they've learned to real life, which I'm pretty sure the United States would fail, and an interesting video about Senator Al Franken questioning Betsy DeVos, the Michigan billionaire tapped by President Trump to be his education secretary. During the debate, Al Franken asked DeVos her views on assessments and using them to measure proficiency or growth, and it seems she couldn't even tell the difference between proficiency or growth. And she says,
Thank you, Senator, for that question. I think if I'm understanding your question correctly around proficiency, I would also correlate it to competency and mastery, so that each student is measured according to the advancement that they're making in each subject area.
Well, that's growth. That's not proficiency. So in other words, the growth they're making is in growth. The proficiency is an arbitrary standard.
If they've reached a level, the proficiency is if they've reached a like third grade level for reading, etc.
No, I'm talking about the debate between proficiency and growth, and
yes.
what your thoughts are on them.
Well, I was just asking to clarify then.
Well, this is a subject that has been debated in the education community for years, and I've
growth 1, proficiency 0. To me, she was a little dumbfounded, but that's just me. No shade, once again. And from someone named Matt Barnum, when you measure schools on proficiency, the wrong schools may receive accolades or sanction. You see, the schools could be doing a great job helping kids improve and understand the information that they are being taught. That might not show up on proficiency measures. Franken argues also in the debate that with proficiency, teachers ignore the kids at the top, who are not going to fall below proficiency, and they ignore the kids at the bottom, who they know will never get to proficiency. And sadly, proficiency is what most want. For the students at the top, that might not be a problem. But for students at the bottom, that is a major problem. They don't get the chance to meet their real potential. So how can they even reach proficiency, something teachers want, if they don't even know the material? Let's ask the question, do you think schools should be measured on proficiency or growth? But a similar question was asked by a user on a debate website asking, is school more about grades than actual learning? One parent sums it up for the 83% of people who said yes, saying, unfortunately, it is. The parents often don't bother to look beyond the grade as though the grading tells them everything. The emphasis is on these marks the students receive to fulfill a goal that may not have ever been theirs in the first place. As such, the motive instilled is do better to satisfy people who have power over me, rather than do better to be more knowledgeable. School too often becomes a case of large quantities of rote memorization that rewards temporarily holding knowledge for immediate use and discarding it as soon as it stops having use. For the other 17% that said no, one user says, from my point of view, parents should have highlighted the importance of learning rather than grades in the first place, because keeping their marks up without learning won't be any use in the long run, which is true in my opinion. Parents should highlight the importance of learning rather than grades. But with the stress of getting into college, students disregard learning and focus only on getting the grades. As mentioned earlier, high school students are more likely to take AP classes to impress colleges rather than actually care about what they're learning and if they find it interesting or not. According to a certain article online, there was a time where people enjoyed learning and wanted to become wiser, but now that it is a surviving social requirement, some students look at it as only that. With the everlasting cycle, it has now been set into stone that things have to be this way, when it doesn't. Instead of picking classes for colleges, pick classes for yourself. Don't be afraid to be challenged just because your GPA might suffer. See what you can take. Don't worry, I'm not just talking to you guys either. I'm talking to myself too, seeming as though I saw one too many AP classes on my schedule for next year. But we're not here to talk about me. We're here to talk about you. The value of college comes from the result rather than the process, and in the same can be said with high school. Learning and your grade point average should not be two separate entities. Rather than they should be considered hand in hand when studying. So why is growth better than proficiency? Simple. Growing and expanding your own mind for you at your own pace is what will help you in the long run. Proficiency, anybody can memorize something in one night and say that they learned or mastered it. But did you really? If you came across it again, say a month later, would you remember?